Director in Institutional Research and Analytics. And I have been using Qualtrics in my work for a while, even before the university got the site license, which allows everyone here on this call to have your own Qualtrics account, which is great. So I'm excited to provide an overview of how you can use the tool, and you will have my contact information when this is over if you have further questions.
All right, so we did start recording. I know there are people that have signed up that may want to watch this at a later date, so we are recording. Live transcriptions are also enabled, so feel free to go ahead and add those in if you would like. So we'd like to start by getting a sense from you all what your experience might be using Qualtrics. So if you can take a moment, pull up your chat, and just type in what your experience is. Maybe you've never heard of it. Maybe you use it in your research, but you're interested in using it in teaching. Maybe you use it extensively and you're just here to get a sense of different ways people might be using it, or different tips for actually the technical side of things. So take a moment to do that, and that will help guide us in what might be the best to do for demoing. Wonderful. So it looks like we have the full gamut here from people that have heard of it but never used it, to, I think, James, you said you're a certified gold Qualtrics user. So you all come in with a wealth of knowledge, so feel free to add your own comments in the chat as we go, any experiences or tips that you think might be helpful to share with this group and to share with those watching the video. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break this into 3 parts, and I'll be leading the pieces that are around how you might be using it in teaching. I use it often, and I'll talk about that, but Sarah really is our expert here, and she will be demoing different ways that you can actually create surveys and look at reports. So we'll start with this idea of how Qualtrics can be used in teaching. And the way that I like to think about this, so I have, as I mentioned, I have taught in the chemistry department. One of the courses that I've used Qualtrics in is a large, probably one of the largest courses at the university, Intro Chem Lab course, which has 1,400 and plus students. I think it might be up to 1,600 this year. I no longer teach it, but I've used it in a very large course with about 60 TAs and multiple different sections. I've also used Qualtrics in teaching in very small courses, anywhere from 20 to 30 students. And so I'll be using some of the examples, and actually the reports that you'll be seeing are pulled from courses that I have taught before. And I like to think about it in 3 different ways. These are not the only ways, just a way to conceptualize this. So you might want to use Qualtrics in terms of formative assessment, helping you and your students better know where they are in terms of their learning. You might be able to use it, if you want to, for summative assessment, better understanding how students are performing in their learning. Or you may use it for something like mid-semester feedback, getting feedback from students about how teaching is going. And so I'm going to give you examples as we go through at the end of how I've been using them in these 3 different ways. So we're going to take a moment here, and you're going to actually go into a survey just to get a sense of what it might look like. The focus of what we'll be demoing for you today are mid-semester feedback surveys. So feel free to type in that short URL. If you would like to try it on your phone, you can actually put it up to the screen and try the QR code. And I've also put that full long link in the chat. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Just take a look. You don't need to actually fill anything out. There's not a requirement to actually, you can move through the survey without getting stuck anywhere. just to get a sense of the types of questions that I've been using in mid-semester feedback. So I'm going to mute. Click on that link. If you have any problems, just let us know. And we'll come back together in about 2 minutes. All right, hopefully that was enough time for you to just scroll through the survey, see the different types of questions and the ways those questions were asked. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah here to talk us through how to actually create and make some of the questions in the Qualtrics survey. Now that you've seen it from what a student might see, how do you do it on the back end? And a couple of notes before Sarah starts. First, this PowerPoint will be available to you alongside the video. And Sarah has put together some excellent resources to help you. So don't feel overwhelmed if you're like, I don't know how to do this. And second, if you have questions as we go, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm going to be curating those for Sarah. So I may unmute at times to have her maybe do something different or redo something, or whatever questions you might have, we can stop and pause to answer them. But I'll be curating those, so feel free to type them in the chat as we go. All right, Sarah, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. I'm going to take us through sort of setting up what might be a mid-semester evaluation survey. This is going to be an overview really for the folks that are new to Qualtrics. So those of you that said you're familiar, but you haven't seen it, or maybe you've taken a Qualtrics survey, you just took one, but haven't seen the builder side of it, how to set it up. So we're going to kind of start at the beginning, just starting with the blank survey. And there, when I talk about resources at the end, I can tell you a little bit more about where you can get more information and more training to do more sophisticated things with Qualtrics. But as I mentioned before, everyone has a Qualtrics account at UVA. We have a site license. And I mention that because we also we get Qualtrics support as part of our site license. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to share my screen. And okay. So when you want to log into your Qualtrics account, make sure you're going to virginia.qualtrics.com. That's the login that's here through the Learning Text site. It's also what's on the UVA Qualtrics page. So ideally, you want to make sure that you're logging in through NetBadge. If you go to qualtrics.com, just the regular Qualtrics site, you are going to be asked for a username and a password, and you can get a free account, but it's not going to take you to your UVA account. So it's really important that you log in through the site license way. When you get into Qualtrics, you have this main page. It's going to list all of your projects. I have several in here. If you are logging in for the first time, you're not going to have anything, and that's fine. We're going to create one. In the upper right-hand corner, you can create a new project. There are some Qualtrics provided resources. There's some templates. If you scroll down, they even have like a student satisfaction survey that you could use. Certainly you can play with them if you're interested. I think for your purposes, you're probably going to want to start from scratch. You can click on survey and create your project. So I'm going to name this test survey. Click create project, and it's going to take a second. It's going to load it up. And this is basically what your Qualtrics builder looks like. So let me just take you through this screen so you know what you're looking at, because there's a lot here. This part is going to be listing your questions. This is where you're always going to interact and add your questions. On the left-hand side, it's going to be where all of your question options are. I do want to call attention to this upper right-hand side. There's a question mark. That's where you can go for Qualtrics support. So if you ever get stuck or you're having trouble with something, I'll talk a little bit about how you might troubleshoot, but this is one area where you can connect directly to Qualtrics support. So once you're in Qualtrics, you can immediately start working on your survey. The first thing that's going to be there for you is the multiple choice question, and you can just kind of get right to it. So I would put in a question that says like, how satisfied are you with assignment? And you click, and you can see, hopefully you saw that immediately Qualtrics is trying to help you. It picked up on the fact that you had said satisfied, and it's giving you some options from extremely satisfied, extremely dissatisfied to extremely satisfied. So you don't have to use what Qualtrics provided, but just so you see that there is this, it's always going to try to help you as much as it can. So anything you want to change with your question, come over here to the left. I'm going to keep it at multiple choice. That's the type of question we're working with. If you, I only want them to have one answer. There's other times where you could have multiple options. Here's the number of choices. So we have 5 right now. You can change it to 7. Again, Qualtrics is going to change it for you. You could decide, you know what, I don't want a satisfaction question. I want an agree, disagree question. I want it true or false, below average, above average. There's a whole list here. And again, Qualtrics is going to kind of try to help you out with that. You can reverse order it. So let's say you are good with your satisfaction question. You want to change the wording. So for example, Qualtrics has provided extremely satisfied, extremely dissatisfied. I don't really like that. Students don't tend to select things that say extremely. So I want to change it. As soon as you click on it, it becomes editable, and you can switch it out. So you've got a satisfaction question. Let me add another one down here on the right. You can click add new question. And let's say you want to follow up with a student who said they were dissatisfied and you want to ask them why. So let's add a text question. So again, text entry means your respondent is entering text as part of the question. The text or graphic means you're adding text to the page that's going to help provide instructions or directions or maybe a title. I'll come back to that in a second. So again, I picked text entry because I want the students to enter text about why are you. So if I presented this to the students, they can type in, there's a lot of different options. Once I clicked here, it came up as an option to do a single line of text, multiple lines, you can do an essay. So again, if you were doing an actual assessment and you wanted them to write a short answer or an essay response, you can use Qualtrics for that purpose. I'm gonna keep single line. And I had mentioned, if you want to find out from a student who said they were dissatisfied and you want to do a follow-up, ideally you wouldn't want to present this question to all students. So you can actually set up any of your questions with what's called branching. So that's anytime you want students who answered a question in one particular way to receive the follow-up or not receive the follow-up. So anytime you, again, want to change anything about your question, scroll down here on the left, and branching, or this way of determining who sees the question or not, is called display logic in Qualtrics. So for this particular question, why are you dissatisfied? I only want people who answered the question, how satisfied are you with assignment 1? Who said they were very dissatisfied, and that's what was selected. So there's a lot of different combinations here. You could present a question to people who have not selected it or have selected it. It depends on your use case. I also want to follow up with students who said they were dissatisfied, not just very dissatisfied. So I can click plus, I can say or, so someone who answered this question very dissatisfied is selected, or they answered this question and somewhat dissatisfied is selected. Now, when you publish your survey, I'll preview it. You can see how this works. So anytime you want to see what you're doing, you can preview your survey. It's going to come up in a separate window. So you can always go back to what you were doing. Now, if I hit very dissatisfied, and the next question, I'll get the follow-up. So let me go back and show you also how to do the back button. So let me just show you this really quick. If they said they were neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, they don't get that follow-up. So if you want students, generally you're going to want people to be able to go forward and backward in the survey. Anytime you have this branching question where they're being sent to a particular question, the branching doesn't always take them back. But generally you do want students to be able to move around the survey, because sometimes people move forward in a survey, they like to see the questions and they want to come back. So when you're talking about doing anything to your survey that's not within the questions, I would check out one of these other options here. So again, we are in the builder. That's where we're building questions into our survey. There's also survey flow. I'll talk about that in a second. You can change the look and the feel, like colors and font and things like that. And then there's the survey options. This is where you're going to get to change how the survey is displayed up in this little tab up here. So it can say mid-semester survey. So if you go under responses, you can turn on a back button. So then they can go forward and backward in your survey. There's a whole lot of other things that you can do here that I'm not going to focus on since we're pressed for time. And I'm going to go back to the builder. So multiple choice questions. I did the branching follow-up question. Another question I want to show you is the matrix question. So when you took that survey that Lindsay provided, maybe you have a list of things that you want to ask your students about. Like you strongly agree or strongly disagree with these 10 different things, or you're very satisfied or dissatisfied with like 10 different assignments and you want them all at once. In Qualtrics, that's called a matrix table. And that's how you're going to be able to add multiple items that all share the same scale. So if everything that you want to ask the students is on strongly agree to strongly disagree or yes or no, you know, whatever that scale is, but they all have the same scale, you can combine them into a matrix question. So how much do you agree? And again, you'll see, I said, how much do you agree? So Qualtrics said, I think you want none, a little, a moderate amount, a lot, a great deal. Again, you can always come over here and change the scale. You can change the number of scale points. And for the statements, right now it's giving me 3. You can go, you know, up to 10, 50, whatever you want. This is really helpful, this edit multiple. So when you hit edit multiple, if you have a list, like you have all 15 of your TAs, you can highlight it and just copy and paste. So from your document into here, you don't have to type each item if you have it in another document, and a lot of times you will. So I think that's really, really helpful. So a few more things really quickly. If you want to give your students some instructions about your survey or your assessment, and you want to add text, again, I talked about adding a text question for your students, but you can also add descriptive text. So hopefully you saw when I was in the question, if you click the plus, you get a new question above. If you click the plus below, you get a new question below. It automatically added a multiple choice question. I don't want that. I want just plain text. And I can say, you know, welcome to my survey. And you can provide instructions to the students. So now that's going to be the first thing that they see when they come into the survey. So a few more question types that I'll talk about really quickly. Let's add one down here. So I introduced multiple choice, text entry, the matrix. You can also do sliders. So I think you saw that in the example that Lindsay shared. So if you want to say, how much do you agree or disagree? How much did you like this assignment? And you would rather it be in this format. These are options. You can do bars. You can do stars, which I think are really helpful. Just how much did you like assignment 1, 2, or 3? And generally, folks are pretty used to using stars to rate things. So there's several different options. And There's also a whole lot of other question types on here. I don't have time to go over all of them, but I did want to show you if you wanted to collect something from students. So perhaps you had introduced a new assignment and you wanted them to upload their assignment and then provide feedback on it. You can actually do a file upload. It is one of the choices. So if you click file upload, we'll tell students upload their assignment, they can upload it. It'll get saved within their Qualtrics data. And then you could say, you know, what did you learn from this assignment? How could I improve this assignment? You know, whatever the questions are, but you do have the option of doing an upload. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. So that's a really quick overview of the builder side of the survey. Hopefully you got to see that. Really what I want you to take away from this is pretty quickly, you don't have to have a lot of experience. You can go in to Qualtrics and pretty much immediately get working without having to know all the ins and outs of it. So hopefully I have been successful in showing you that. So the next thing that you're probably thinking about is how do you send this out? If you go to distribution, so up here on your toolbar, survey is again where your builder is going to be, any of your survey options. Distributions is where you get either a link, so you can do a single reusable link to send out to your students, and it can be anonymous. You can also compose an email through Qualtrics and send it out to them. If you're using email or a trackable link, which means a unique link that each student gets, so then you know who is completing the survey. It's linked to their email address. If you're using compose email or a trackable link, you have to upload a contact list to Qualtrics before you can send out the email. So this is what the email sort of builder looks like. Anytime you want to send it out to a contact list, you always have the opportunity to add your own contacts. Generally with courses, you have depending on how many students you have, if you have 5 students, probably pretty easy. You can put their names and emails, but generally with any larger courses, you're going to want to upload a contact list. And so if you have 15 students, 100 students, maybe you're surveying students that you've taught over several years, you will want to actually come out of this projects window. If you click up here, there's some other parts of your account that you can access. If you go to contacts, that's where you can upload a CSV file of your contact list. And you can upload first name, last name, email. Those email is the only one that's required. And you can upload other information about the students as well if you want to save it with your survey responses. So students from certain classes, like if you want to upload what course they're in, you can do that. So really quickly, I'll show you create contact list. And you can upload a file. Again, Qualtrics is going to help you out. They're going to tell you, here's what the file needs to look like. Here's how big it is. Here's, you know, each row must have a primary email address. It's going to help you out. So that's really great. You can also always add manually. So let me go back to my project really quick. Imagine you did that and you're ready to send out your survey. Now you can send out an email, or you could generate unique links that are tied to an individual student. That way, that student is the only student that can take that survey, and they can only take the survey once. If you have an open reusable link, you can't, this anonymous link, you can't control how many times someone takes the survey. So I'm going to stop there. That was a lot of information, but hopefully you got to see pretty quickly how easy it is to add questions and how quickly you can distribute your survey and get it out to your students.
Thanks, Sarah. So let's pause here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or unmute, and then we'll talk a bit about using results to support learning. All right, great question, Net Badge. Where do we go to log in through Net Badge?
So you want to go, if you're typing it directly, it's virginia.qualtrics.com. But if you also just go to the ITS Qualtrics webpage, so like even if you just typed in Qualtrics at UVA into Google, that link is on the ITS website as well. So I'll share it with my screen really quick so you can see. So I'm on UVA's ITS website, and it's the central UVA, and hopefully you can see it popping up down there at the left. It's virginia.qualtrics.com. I will mention too, if you're from McIntyre, McIntyre has their own portal for logging in, and everything works the same, but you just have a different portal to log in. And then also, I will mention we do have a highly sensitive data portal for Qualtrics. So if you're collecting, if you're from the med school, or if you're particularly if you're collecting health information, we do have a Qualtrics portal that's designed to handle that information that has a higher level of security.
All right, if any other questions come up, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm going to reshare my screen so we can go through thinking about what it might mean to actually use results from Qualtrics in your classes to support learning. So I had mentioned the 3 different ways that at least I have used Qualtrics, one around formative assessment. And so one of the things that I do is I do a getting to know you pre-survey in my courses. And so you can see in the bottom left here is one of my text questions that I ask students. What do you hope to learn in this course? And what Sarah's going to show you after I go through these examples is how you can actually get this information out of Qualtrics in a really effective and meaningful way. And one of those is you can create word clouds. And so what I did for this particular question was created a word cloud. And what you see here is that some of the things that these were TAs in a teaching methods course. They wanted to learn about how to be effective in their teaching to help support students, help them have a good experience, help learn how to communicate with students. And so if you have a large number of students and you've asked an open-ended question, the word cloud can be one way that will help you get information that can help you then think about what you might do to help support that type of learning. Another way is thinking about summative assessment. So I've actually used Qualtrics for more summative assessment in the forms of quizzes. What Sarah wasn't able to show you, but what is one of the great benefits of Qualtrics is that it has a very robust way to actually add in things that might be very content heavy. So I've used this in a chemistry class. You can upload actual images into questions or into the responses. And it works great. It can do subscripts and superscripts, and you can do mathematical equations, I believe. And so I've used something like this multiple choice question as a summative assessment for a quiz. And one of the ways that I can then use that for learning is I can look at the reports again, which Sarah will show you in a moment, and be able to understand how students responded to that. So the correct answer here is London forces. We see that 70% of students got it correct. We have students that picked other answers, and what that tells me is the most common incorrect answer here is hydrogen bonds. So I can then go into class the following day and address one of those misconceptions. And then the last way to think about using these results and to support student learning is around the mid-semester feedback. You can ask questions related directly parallel the course evaluation questions. You may do it for teaching feedback for yourself, which is what we've been modeling and demoing for you, or you could have students do it for peer feedback. And so you saw this matrix question in the survey that we sent you, and you saw that there was a question around TAs being non-native English speakers. And working with a lot of TAs, particularly international TAs in the sciences, students are sometimes challenged when their TA might have a heavy accent. Not that the TA has any issues with communicating, but there might be, the accent may be something that students struggle with. And so what I can then do is begin to look at those responses, and I can split them out based on how students responded to this non-native English speaker question. And so what I can do then is I know that asking thoughtful questions can be really challenging for TAs, particularly TAs that might come from different cultures other than US higher education. And so what I see is for my TAs that are non-native English speakers, so international TAs, the way that their students responded to this particular Likert question looks a bit different than the students that had TAs that were domestic TAs. And so this can help me figure out what is it that I can do to better help support TAs that then help support student learning. And so Qualtrics has all of these capabilities to be able to look at these reports easily in ways that can help you then inform learning. Support learning. So I'm going to hand it back over to Sarah because the reporting function I think is extremely powerful, but it can be kind of that for me, the interface for building is much easier to use than the reporting. And so I'm just giving you a sense of what that looks like. So I'm going to stop sharing, pass it back over to Sarah so that she can show you what this looks like.
Sure. So let me.
And Sarah, maybe if we can shoot 250-ish for timing.
Okay, no problem. So anytime I want to look at results, let me go into Lindsay's mid-semester feedback. This is Lindsay's data from her course. So two things I want to point out: the data analysis tab and the reports tab. Really quickly, let me just show you data and analysis. This is where you can export your data. So once it's collected, or even as it's being collected, if you want to just download the data set, put it in Excel and look at it that way, this is where you're going to go. But also in data analysis, you get this preview of your data. And so I use this a lot when I'm just checking on my survey and I want to see results as they come in, and I just want to check that everything's working. This is real time going to show you as things are coming in. It's only going to show you a couple of questions at a time, but using the plus, you can add questions to look at here. You can hide them as well. So I just want to point that out because I think it's helpful to be able to peek in on your data. The reporting function is under reports. I'm only going to really kind of focus on the default report that Qualtrics provides because of time. But you can also, outside of this results tab here that I'm on, if you go over to reports, you can build a report. Like you can actually start to put something together that has, you know, different titles. You can pull in different questions. There's a lot you can do there, and I'm not going to go over that. I'm just going to focus on, again, assuming that you're a new user and you're just trying to use what Qualtrics is providing, and that's the default report. So in Lindsay's report, she asked about providing feedback on their TAs from different departments. So let me just scroll through to kind of show you what this looks like. So actually, this is a saved report. Hang on. There we go. Okay, sorry. I was playing in this earlier and it saved some things that I had done. So this is truly what the default report looks like in Qualtrics. It's gonna have these graphs. So it's gonna show you for each question, it's gonna have the percentage of responses for each item. As you scroll down, again, every question has these visualizations. That's what each sort of box is called in Qualtrics. So like, this is a visualization. When you click on it, like anything in Qualtrics, once you click on it, that's when it becomes active and you can start doing anything with it. So that was true in the builder, and it's also true here in reporting. So the visualizations that you can add, right now we're in a bar chart. There's a lot of other ones that you can play with too. You can do the simple table, line charts, pie charts, which again, in Lindsay's PowerPoint, you got to see some of those options. And I'm not gonna spend too much time going over that. Let me go down and show you. She had a text question that she had demonstrated that you could use a word cloud for. And yep, it was question 13. So describe one thing that your TA does really well. If you want to look at every response, it's here. You can see it's 287 pages. If you exported this into PDF, it's very easy to read. It's a little bit more difficult to do in here. But again, just click on it, and then that's where your options come up to do whatever you want to do. In this case, it's a text question, so your visualizations are limited. You're not going to get a statistics table. You're not going to get a line graph. Again, the Qualtrics knows this is a text question. But the word cloud, you can select it, and then you get an opportunity to sort of play with it a little bit. So describe one thing that your TA does really well. Looks like we've got some words in here that are maybe less helpful. So if you want to refine it, you can always add stop words like make, making, in, you know.
And just as an instructor, seeing these types of things, like seeing knowing questioning is really important for the course, makes my heart very happy, right? And approachable and helpful. All of those words that we see come up frequently can be really informative if you're looking at such a large class.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's something to keep in mind if you're collecting data in this way. I do surveys a lot, and when things are confirming or validating, it's still really good. Like maybe you ask questions, and what I'm saying is you don't necessarily learn anything new, but you feel more validated that you're on the right track, that you're that you're, you know what's going on. It's just validated and confirming. So that's it's also good. So I just switched the max words. If you want to take it down, take it up, you have that option. So let me get out of here really quick and show you one other question. So I think you saw that Lindsay had a pretty long list of statements about the TA that the students could agree or disagree with. And if you want to get a really quick look at that, like what is the top item there? I personally don't find this visualization very helpful. Like the bar graphs are not really helping me there. You can always remove them. So anytime you're within a visualization, if you click here, you can remove it. And then here what I have is a statistics table, and you can really quickly sort, again, in Qualtrics anytime, everything is clickable, everything can interact, and you can start to order if you want to order by the question, by the questions, if you want to order by mean, all of that's, you're able to do that. I don't think that we have time, but really quickly, just if you notice it. So let me show you one other thing. Within this statistics table, there is an option for a bottom box and a top box. I'm mentioning it because I think this is really, really helpful, and I've been using it a lot lately. So if any of your questions are these Likert scale questions, right? These questions that go from strongly agree to strongly disagree, very satisfied to very dissatisfied, you can always click top and bottom box, and you could just do the top 2, top 3, you could do top 1. And I just find it to be really helpful in showing you this is how many people respond that they are on the bottom of the scale or the top of the scale.
And apologies, this one was backwards. I think one to.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention that the 95.1% being at the bottom is because in Lindsay's matrix, the first option you got was strongly agree. So if you find yourself in that situation, it's not a big deal. I don't have time to go back and show, but you can easily go back into the builder and you can change that. So if you wanted strongly agree to come first, it can, and then you can tell Qualtrics, actually, that's my top 5 choice. So it has a higher rating, and I want strongly disagree to have a 1. So I don't have time to show that, but you can, again, anything within Qualtrics, even once you've collected the data, I think is the point that I want to make. Even after you've collected data, you can still go back and move things around. It's really user-friendly in that way.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So I've never used the top and bottom box, so I just learned something new. I appreciate it. All right, so we have about 8 minutes left. One thing that I wanted to talk a bit about is there are so many tools out there, and part of this is trying to figure out what suits your needs the best. Maybe Qualtrics is the thing that would work for you, but there are other options. And so I put together just a list of pros and cons for some of the other things that you might be thinking about or you might have used. So things like testing quizzes in your LMS. So Colab, Canvas, Brightspace, D2L, all of the different learning management systems that we use at UVA. You could think about maybe you've used Gradescope or Poll Everywhere. And so Qualtrics kind of suits the needs of some of these things. And so it can be helpful depending on what you want to do. So if you were really interested in doing surveys with more complex types of questions, with those branching, and getting feedback from students, that might be one way to go about it. I have found it much more expansive than the tests and quizzes tool in the LMS systems. But if you're looking for something where you might want to actually grade work, Qualtrics is not very effective at that. And so Gradescope might be something that you want to use. Qualtrics is great in getting feedback from students, but not so great on giving live results in class. And so just thinking about what it is that you need for your class, what your learning objectives are, and can help you figure out what the best tool is. And just sort of on that, I know that there have been a lot of different ed tech webinars this week. If you are thinking about using all 4 of these, maybe that's not the best choice because students can get really overwhelmed by having all of these different things going on. So consider how Qualtrics might or might not fit into what you're doing in your courses. And maybe there's one other tool that might be helpful for you as you think about assessment. And some other things, it sounds like some of you have used Qualtrics in lots of different ways, but some of the other ways that might not be related to your courses, but might be helpful, thinking about application submissions. This is a great tool for that. I think I think Lisa mentioned she uses it for tutoring forums. So event registrations is also really effective. That's what we use in the center, is Qualtrics for that. I have also seen, I have not done it, but if you have a large number of students and you get a lot of recommendation requests, this can be a really great tool where you can set it up and have a link for students to fill in information that can help inform their recommendations. And then I think Sarah could speak to this a bit, but if you're helping students prepare for a national exam, whether that's, let's say there's a nursing exam, and so you may want to actually put in questions into Qualtrics to mimic what they might be doing in terms of taking exams. Sarah, anything you wanted to add to that last?
Yeah, actually, if you are using it for that purpose, you can add a timer to your questions, and you can choose for the students to see it or not. But if you are trying to get them to learn how to take an exam within a certain amount of time, that is an option where they can see a timer so they know how long they're spending on each question.
Thank you, Sarah. Another thing I didn't know. Appreciate it. And so I think we'll go ahead and end there to give anybody an opportunity to ask any last minute questions, but there are 3 slides here that Sarah put together in terms of information, links, support. So UVA does have Qualtrics support, but the Qualtrics support through the actual vendor is also really effective. Just clicking that help button and chatting with somebody can be really helpful as well. And so there's lots of information on all of these last 3 slides, which we'll post for you. So with that, do you have any questions, anything that you wanted to see again, anything about use or comparing it to other tools? What might be most helpful for you all in the last few minutes? All right, well, so maybe Sarah and I will just stay on for a couple more minutes if anybody wants to stay. Otherwise, thank you for being here, and hope this was helpful, and we'll get everything posted. Thanks so much.
Thank you.